Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Roberto Corona. I'm an anthroposopher and astrologer, and in this video we're going to talk about the next lunar eclipse taking place on September 18 in the zodiac sign of Pisces. Now this eclipse is going to affect in particular our feelings and emotions, and on top of that it is going to feature the appearance of a comet, the Tsuchinshan Atlas comet. Now, this is the first eclipse of eclipse season 2 of 2024, and it will take us towards the festival of Michael happening on September 29, a festival very dear to anthroposophers, being the festival of courage, a quality that we are going to need for sure. Now, these are the eclipses of 2024. We have already talked in previous videos about the two eclipses of season 1. Now, as you can see, we are approaching the second season, which includes a partial lunar eclipse taking place on September 18, which we're going to talk about in this video, and an annular solar eclipse that will follow right after 2 weeks on October 2nd. Now, in the video about the astrology of 2024, we had indicated the possible appearance of 2 comets for this year. The Pons-Brooks comet, which actually appeared in April. We talked about this comet, the so-called Devil's Comet, in the video of the solar eclipse in Aries. And then we have the Tsuchinshan Atlas comet, which is expected to appear in October. We know that comets are unstable phenomena, so they must always be evaluated at the moment of their appearance. However, it is important here to know that this could help us because this comet is going to be a good comet. Now, we have to make a distinction between periodic comets and non-periodic comets, basically. So Rudolf Steiner, founder of anthroposophy, showed us that non-periodic comets are benevolent, as in this case, as in the case of the comet that is going to appear in October. Now, this is good. And why are they benevolent? Because they collect all the noxious astral substance of the solar system and they expel it outside for good so that it never comes back. And in fact, these comets are guided by the first spiritual hierarchy, so the highest spiritual beings. Whereas periodic comets are malevolent, and this was the case with the Devil's Comet, as they collect this harmful astral substance, but they send it back to us, basically returning towards the Earth with a certain periodicity, hence the name periodic. And in fact, these comets are used by the forces of hindrance that are against us, that are adverse to the Earth evolution. Now, the first eclipse, being a lunar eclipse, is by definition a full moon, as the shadow of the Earth will darken a part of the moon, just a little part in this case. In fact, we're talking about a partial lunar eclipse. And the next one is a solar eclipse, which by definition is a new moon because the moon is placed basically in front of the sun, obscuring it. And this will be an annular solar eclipse happening at 10 degrees Libra. Now, annular means ring, and this is because the disk of the sun is going to appear slightly bigger than the moon, and so a ring of light is going to form. Now, the first eclipse can also count on the help, as we said, of Comet Tsuchinshan Atlas. And we also want to point out that the 2 eclipses are taking place around the festival of Michael, September 29. So we can count on the help of the solar forces that defeat evil. And this is, of course, a very important consideration to make. Now, the comet in particular during the eclipse is going to be perfectly aligned with the planet Mercury. You can see here their conjunction. In fact, Mercury in the eclipse chart is placed at 14-ish degrees Virgo. You see it here in white. Whereas down here, we have in green the comet that is going to be basically at 13 degrees Virgo. So here's the thing. Mercury, with its caduceus, with his healing forces, is going to aid us, to help us. And this is great because the whole point of this comet is to purify the astral of our system, again, because this is a good comet. And they are sitting together between 12, 14 degrees Virgo. Now, this is a very powerful healing spot in this chart, and we can count on these forces of healing to counterbalance basically the overall effect of the eclipse, which is destabilizing, right? So this is the chart of the eclipse. We have few updates from the last lunation. On September 5, Mars entered Cancer, as we know. And on September 9, Mercury is entering Virgo. And this is great because Mercury is in both its domicile and exaltation. So not only is Mercury conjunct the comet and helping us, but it is an extraordinarily strong Mercury and close enough, I would say, to the axis of the luminaries to help. So this is Mercury. Beneath it, as you can see, the comet, and this is the sun and moon. And this is the axis of the luminaries. Now, of course, this is a lunar eclipse, so it's different from a solar eclipse. Being a lunar eclipse, it is, again, a full moon, and it represents the peak of the lunation cycle that began with the last new moon, which was the new moon in Virgo of September 4. And regarding eclipses, Rudolf Steiner said that during a solar eclipse, harmful astral forces are expelled out in the cosmos, whereas during a lunar eclipse, such harmful astral forces that are present in the cosmos have access to the Earth again. So in particular, they can access the Earth through the cone of shadow that the Earth is projecting on the moon during a lunar eclipse. As if it was a sort of tunnel, they can basically use it to penetrate the Earth. And for this reason, we are exposed, especially in our thinking, to harmful thoughts of a Ahrimanic nature. So bad, nasty thoughts are going to affect us, basically. So let's take a look at the chart. So the eclipse is taking place at 2540 of Pisces here, in the starry image of the constellation of Pisces, which is this one here. And as you can see, the moon is in conjunction with Neptune. Now, this means that there are going to be strong water element significations in the chart because, you know, Pisces, of course, is a very sensitive zodiac sign. And on top of that, we have its modern ruler, which is Neptune. And in astrology, water is the element of feelings, the element of emotions. And in this regard, the collective unconscious is going to be affected. So we're going to feel this eclipse a lot. Now, this is also a north node eclipse. So as you can see, this is the north node close to both the moon and Neptune. An eclipse can happen on a north node, on the south node, and this is a north node eclipse, right? So traditionally, the north node is called a little Jupiter. And this is because it involves exaggerations and excess of some kind. So we need to keep that in mind. And this eclipse happening in Pisces is ruled by the ruler of Pisces, which is Jupiter here. Now, Jupiter, as we know, is in Gemini, but this time is going to be in conjunction with the star Bellatrix, which is the star of the Amazon, the left shoulder of Orion, of the Orion constellation. Now, as you can see, Jupiter is also closing the luminaries in a T-square configuration. So we have a lot of tension brought about this Jupiter here, right? And of course, this tension in the chart is also related to a star that, as we're going to see, has to do with female warriors. So this is the image. We have the star of female warriors, and this tension brought about Jupiter, the ruler of the eclipse. However, this tension, I would say, is definitely going to be mitigated because we have a lot of harmonious aspects going on that the sun and the moon are doing, basically. So in short, this is a kite configuration. Can you see that? This shape is that of a kite, right? And the kite is pointing precisely the eclipse. So this kite is formed, first of all, by a grand trine of Earth, because the Sun, Pluto, and Uranus, they are all three in Earth signs. Remember that Pluto just got back to Capricorn, right? So we have this this grand trine of Earth, which is definitely a good configuration. And the Moon and Neptune, they are closing this trine with two sextiles, with again our good aspects, right? So overall, the kite configuration is basically mitigating all the tension that naturally an eclipse is building, and of course this is good. So this chart has a lot of energy. Also, given that this great trine of Earth involves Uranus and Pluto, and we know that they are two planets that is not very easy, right, to deal with. So let's talk about the meanings of the chart. You know me, I always start from a physical perspective. And in this regard, we have to say that this eclipse could lead to sudden revelations and unveilings. Why is that? This is because the lunar eclipse is a full moon, basically. So it represents the breaking of light into the darkness, right? So this means that, this light is bringing revelations, disclosures, news, right? And the sudden character is given by the very nature of the eclipse itself. Now, that could lead us to react to this news, these unveilings, in a quite chaotic way, I would say. Why chaotic? Because from a practical standpoint, the zodiac sign of Pisces and Neptune, its modern ruler, they're not great, right? They represent chaos, right? So we are called to confront this chaos, also dealing, I would say, with a certain dose of anger. Why anger? Because Jupiter, again, the lord of the eclipse, is not only making this T-square configuration with Sun and Moon, but is also in conjunction with the star Bellatrix. Again, literally, Bellatrix in Latin means female warrior, right? For this reason, we will have to deal with anger and a certain amount of bellicosity in general. Now, the great helper in this chart is without any doubt Mercury, that we have already discussed about, right? Mercury in Virgo represents the intellect, which is capable of extricating itself throughout all this chaos. And in this sense, the kite configuration is promising because it points precisely towards the Moon and Neptune. So we have the kite really pointing at this chaos as something that it need to be fixed, right? Somehow. Of course, we have to figure that out by ourselves. Of course, in general, we don't have to underestimate the activation during an eclipse of the trine between Uranus and Pluto. So I wouldn't say that this great trine is necessarily good, because it can be quite unstable, even though it's an Earth grand trine. In general, I would say that this could lead to social chaos, especially in unstable areas from a geopolitical perspective. As we can see, as always, the Middle East. Yeah, I know, it's always the Middle East. So from a psychological perspective, the challenge of this eclipse concerns the effect of these negative thoughts, which have now access to the Earth. So this cone of shadow is allowing these negative thoughts to penetrate the Earth atmosphere, and they are affecting our emotions, given the water nature of both Pisces and, of course, Neptune. So in short, we could start feeling these harmful thoughts having a greater hold on our feelings and emotions, but we can fight them back, of course. It is possible by focusing more on, positive thoughts, especially during the days before the event. We don't want to wait for the very day of the eclipse itself, so we want to really start working on our thinking days before it, right? On top of that, we can take a greater care in general of our thinking, also by cultivating clear, calm, and logical thoughts, as, for example, Steiner indicates in the first of his famous 6 exercises. And this can prevent, these obsessive and negative thoughts from gaining the upper hand, basically. The important thing here is to disengage from these thoughts and let them just flow away, not trying to fight them much, but just recognizing them and let them go with the flow. And in my opinion, it is not the case, it is not great to operate during the event, during an eclipse, because metaphorically speaking, we want to build this embankment before the flood arrives and not during the flood itself, if that makes sense. This is my take on that. Now, from a spiritual point of view, the full moon is eclipsed in the starry image of Pisces. Here we go. Which in astrosophy represents the constellation of the father principle and the law of the father, which is the law of karma. Now, this means that, a release of part of humanity's karma is possible during this phenomena, similarly to what we have witnessed in previous eclipses of this kind. This is not the first eclipse happening in this constellation. And again, the greatest help in a spiritual sense, as we've said, comes from 2 contributions. First of all, we have the Michael impulse, who, as we've seen in previous videos, is helping through the sidereal iron coming from the sky, fighting back the Ahrimanic, sulfuric Ahrimanic dragon, right? So we want to remember September 29, the day of the Festival of Michael, because it is literally the festival of good forces defeating evil, right? And it is happening in between the 2 eclipses. And secondly, of course, the forces of Mercury, who, according to Judeo-Christian naming, is basically Archangel Raphael. And in fact, we have seen how Mercury Raphael is particularly strong in Virgo. And on top of that, he is working from the constellation of Leo, from which angelic forces stream down to Earth, angelic forces of the heart that we mentioned in the previous video. And basically, Raphael is aiding us with his caduceus through healing forces, helping specifically the mind. And this is great because, this eclipse is affecting our thoughts, right? So we have this beautiful, beautiful image that we can read in this celestial script, right? We have Mercury Raphael collecting harmful astral forces under its wings with the comet beneath him, a comet that is guided by the seraphim and cherubim, which are the highest spiritual being. And this comet has the task of carrying away out of our solar system the very same astral wastes that are now trying to penetrate the Earth. So this is great. This is a beautiful picture that we can literally, see happening in the sky out there. Now let's take a look at the places in the world where the eclipse will be most intense. We can do it using astrocartography, which allows us to see where in the world the eclipse is going to be stronger. Basically, we can see here where the eclipse is going to take place on one of the 4 angles of a chart. They are the most powerful spots in a chart. So in red, you can see the ascendant line here that, fortunately falls into the Pacific. In yellow, we have the descendant line crossing the Middle East and Madagascar. In green, we have the midheaven line affecting the northeast coast of Brazil, basically. And in blue, we have the IC line affecting Japan and Australia. Now, if we compare this chart with the actual path of the eclipse, we can see where the event will be most powerful. This is the path of the eclipse by timeanddate.com. And as you can see, the eclipse will be visible from almost anywhere, from the Americas, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, right? So this means that precisely in the Middle East, the eclipse is going to be stronger, unfortunately, because this is an area that at the moment is much more unstable than usual. And obviously the reference in this regard goes to the Uranus-Pluto trine that, can be risky in this regard. As always, thanks for watching. If you want to support my work, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell not to miss out on future astrological insights. I am Roberto Corona. See you in the next video.